live.com.
Straight Talk is not a product of MTS Broadcasting. The views and opinions expressed by the host, callers, and guests are not necessarily the views and opinions of MTS Broadcasting staff and management.
Welcome to Straight Talk, a show designed to focus on the people and the issues of the Delmarva Peninsula. Your host, former Cambridge, Maryland Mayor Cleveland Rippins, will bring you insightful discussion, fascinating guests, and captivating calls. You are invited to join the show by calling 410-228-9238 or 1-866-687-5483. You may also email straight.talk1240@live.com. Here's the host of Straight Talk, Cleveland Rippins.
Yes, good morning and welcome back. Jeez, wait all that time just to cough as we come back. Now, as we've been on the show here ever since last year at our reception, our premise, one of the things that we wanted to do is to show you that the spirit of the human being can overcome. And we have a guest in studio with us today. His name is Clodfelter. You may not have heard of him, but he has a very impelling story that I think you need to hear about. In this day and age, whenever a lot of people are giving up because of circumstances that are going on, the economy is affecting a lot of people. We've heard our guests come on here and talk about the many, many people out there that are in need. A very inspirational story we have here. We have Kurt Clodfelter here in studio with us, and on the line we have Mr. McNamara. He's and his firm, which is Eagle Rare Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, is going to come into play in a little bit. But first off, let's introduce you to Kurt. Good morning, Kurt.
Morning. How's it going?
Okay. Can you tell, and again, to me, the more I hear about it, the more that it's imperative that we get stories like this out there. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who Kurt was, your career, and then what happened?
Well, to kind of encapsulate it, if I would, I started cooking at a very, very young age. Probably right about the time I was 8 or so, my grandmother started teaching me how to make the foods of Lebanon, which is where she was from. And at that point, my life, obviously as a kid, you want to be anything. You're going to be a cowboy, you're going to be a spaceman, and nothing really dawns on you until later on when I found myself in high school. Very good musician, very talented on the low brass instruments, was the section leader for the sousaphone line for the Ravens marching band. We were the Colts band at the time, so go Baltimore Colts only. My choices were kind of, the cooking thing was still of interest. I had started catering, catered my first party when I was 11 years old. It was a part of a school project way back when, and had been doing weddings since I was 16 or so, catering weddings and stuff, helping my uncle and doing a few parties on my own. And I said, my choices here are be a starving artist and follow the music route, or go be a chef and always know where my next meal was going to be. And I said, well, I like to eat, so I'm going to go ahead and take the chef angle. 1998, I started my training at the Culinary Institute of America on the recommendation of some very significant chef friends and influences in my life. And at that time, I had a 6-month period where I was pretty much numb from the waist down. Didn't really think much of it, kind of a hard head, 18-year-old invincible kid, so I didn't even think about it, and I just powered through it, went through school, graduated in the year 2000, came back home to Maryland, couldn't wait to get back to the state I know and love, and started cooking, opening restaurants, helped to open, I believe it's totals up to about 9 different restaurants at this point that I helped to open or reopen under new ownership, And in 2003, at the last restaurant that I'd opened completely, it was a little place down in Pasadena called Blazing Steaks. I was in the kitchen. I was the only one in the restaurant. I was just doing some prep work for the morning, whatever, and noticed I started nicking myself with the knife. I said, man, I'll never kind of cut myself. I mean, chef, you either cut yourself or you don't. You don't just nick yourself, And I thought that was kind of odd. Then I looked down at my prep list, and I couldn't read it. And then next thing I know, my knees gave out, banged my head as I went down, woke up with the owner coming into the restaurant about 2 hours later, dragging me up onto a bar stool, trying to find out what was going on. And again, at the time, I just chalked it up to exhaustion. A couple months after that, I ended up finding out that I had multiple sclerosis. And I'll never forget the conversation I had with my doctor. He sat down and he says, well, Kurt, he goes, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm a chef. He goes, no, that's what you used to do. What do you do now? And it took me a solid 4 or 5 years to figure that out. Bounced around, did some teaching, did some food writing, did some, I was teaching culinary program up in Baltimore for a nonprofit organization, helped at-risk adults, pleasant euphemism for ex-cons, basically, get back on their feet, have careers in the kitchen, one of the industries that doesn't mind a criminal background, apparently. And then
there you go.
So went on like that for a while, and then ended up going to my second love and passion, which was wine and the spirits industry, which brought me to Fish Paws Marketplace, which is where I am today after 5 years of being the wine manager there. Last year or so, I gave up my post as wine manager, hired a good friend of mine who is a certified sommelier, and decided to take over the deli. So I'm cooking again. More limited basis. It's not service, but I do some catering. I get to do basically, the owner, Kim Lawson, is a great gal, gives me free reign to pretty much do whatever I want as long as it sells.
Carte blanche. And but let's talk about that for people who may not. We keep hearing the term, multiple sclerosis.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's heard it, MS, all the way since we've been growing up, But really, for our listeners out there, we keep hearing about, but your interpretation, tell us your perspective about MS and the true devastation, the debilitation of that.
Well, it's a very, very, very weird disease to have. It's a shocking diagnosis, no doubt. It was earth-shattering for me, especially since, like I said, I'd put all my eggs in one basket. I was going to be a chef. That's all I ever wanted to be. And I was told I wasn't going to be able to do that. And before I go too far into what MS has done to me, I do want to thank the station. You guys have, I was looking out in the lobby there. You got a lot of things from the MS Society, so you guys are tremendous champions to the cause here to help find a cure and better treatments for this, and that means a lot. But MS is basically nobody knows what's going to happen when they wake up tomorrow. But everybody else is pretty sure they're going to be able to get up out of bed and walk. I can't say that. I really don't know when the day comes that I won't be able to do that. I've got good days, I've got bad days. Sometimes people notice my limps, sometimes they don't. One of the most frustrating things for me is, I just turned 30 this year. I was diagnosed when I was 23, and I'm a healthy, sizable dude here. In my free time back during culinary school and everything, I'd started and participated in a fight club, boxing, and I've been a bouncer at a nightclub and that kind of thing. I've always been a big physical guy, which helps me mitigate the effects of the disease, no doubt. But it's one of the most frustrating things is people walk by and you don't look sick. Oh, geez, I'm sorry, I forgot to ride the wheelchair today. I'd be happy to do that for you if you make you feel a little more sympathetic to my plight. But it's and that's reiterated throughout everybody with MS is when you're having your good days, you just want to ride that high, and yet ultimately it'll come out. It'll come up, and it'll be because somebody says, hey, let's go to the amusement park on a 90-degree day, and I got to say I don't think that's my gig this time, guys. It's too hot. It's going to wear me down, and I won't be able to do that. Unbeknownst to me, they wanted to just take me to the amusement park because then they get to go to the front of all the lines if they use my handicap pass. But I told them if they push me in the wheelchair, I'll consider it. But like I said, it's just really the worst part of it is the not knowing. You would think the disability that comes and goes and whatever would be the case, but it's just the not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, not knowing what my level of function is going to be the next day or even the next hour, that really drives me nuts. And there's periodic depression. You go through the first depression or the diagnosis, and then you go through the second when you have the next relapse, and then because you had that period to clear, so you figured you were good, and then the relapse comes back, and now it's like, oh geez, and you start all over again. It takes you a good long while to come to peace with it, and I've actually found that, and this is tremendously crazy to me, is that since Facebook and social media, and you can get in touch with people that you never even liked back in the day and whatnot, all of a sudden I'm finding out there's 3 or 4 other folks from my graduating class from my high school that all have MS now also, which is,
Any correlations, anything going down there? Or
short of the fact of the global statistics of the fact that we are all middle-class white folks, which is one of the hardest hit demographics of MS, and they really think it's climatic thing. They think it's an environmental